Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
Hello, in this week's first episode is Freak. Lex is using a blind man to find more test subjects for his experiments. Then, in Promise, wedding bells are ringing. What will Clark, Lana, and Lex do? This is the Smallville Chronicles. Hello and welcome back. I'm Lou Gonzalez, joined as always by the illustrious Ellen Muir.
You know, I really, actually, compared to last week's episodes, I really love these two.
Oh yeah, this first one is like really an interesting, like, I'm surprised it didn't take them longer to get to an episode like this. And then the second episode is like a really cool, which I think the second one is, the first one is the one that Rosenbaum directs. The second one is like a really interesting way to set up an episode, like how to like shoot it, or not shoot it, storytelling wise, that he could have done more of in certain situations, like stuff like played around with the way that they would tell stories. Like I feel like we hadn't seen that before. But yeah, we are, I think it's like a little bit past the halfway point, so we're after they're back from their winter break, and this first episode is basically Valentine's Day week, which is interesting because like I feel like this is like one of the few times where they don't make a Valentine's Day episode. I guess that's what the thing was the week before, kind of, with like the Lois and Clark thing, but like they still don't really do anything per se with that. But we open this episode, Freak, Lana's having her bachelorette party, and it's just her and Chloe, which does kind of say like a lot to like how small the cast is, especially comparing it to like the CW stuff, like how much bigger those casts are, even though they're only like the Flash is at like 7 people, but it's still so much bigger than this show. This show's at like at this point like 4, really, maybe 5. Like if you like, it's Clark, Lana, Chloe, Lex, and then like kind of step down is Lois and Jimmy,
and occasionally Lionel, occasionally Martha.
Yeah. So it's a very small cast at this point. I think it's next season where like Lois and Jimmy become like real like members of the cast. But then we lose Lana. Like I think we lose her like halfway through or ish, something like that, right? Because she's the first of like the core to leave.
Well, no, she comes back in season 8.
Yeah, but I mean like leaving as like a main cast member. She like steps away. Rosenbaum like leave. Like he's gone. Like
he's left.
Martha's like wasn't really she was like in the main cast, but she wasn't like of like our main characters. And obviously like Jonathan's dead, so but yeah, like as good, like compared to like the core group, she's like the first one that like takes the big step away from the show. So it's just Lana and Chloe. She says Chloe's her best friend, which again, there's 4 people in the show, so who else would it be? It's not like we ever see her aunt again after season 2. Or her biological dad and his family ever again, which her biology still is very confusing because like they made her dad. I can't remember. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, so her dad in her flashbacks isn't her dad, but he's the one in the flashbacks that I believe is Asian. So, and her biological dad is white, and her aunt, which is her mom's sister, is also white. It's just like, oh, they're just like, don't forget about those things. We're not going to talk about them. So we see they're having fun bowling badly and taking pictures. One of the employees shows up and flirts with Lana, and he's kind of like showing her how to like roll the ball, and apparently now she's like way better. And Chloe notices that he's like looking at the ball, and she's like kind of figures out that he's doing it telekinetically. And he asks for Lana's number, but she shoots him down by flashing her engagement ring. But this is kind of fun. And it's cool to like show that like, oh, there are some people that got powers that like are just like not doing anything with them, as opposed to everyone we've seen, which comes up in this episode of like everyone else who's had powers is like evil-ish. And then we cut to Dr. Bethany, Robert Bethany, shows up at the bowling alley with they're saying young man. This guy's like, he's as old as Clark and them. He's in his like mid-20s. Tobias Rice, played by Grayston Holt, who is now a jacked monster.
Oh man, yeah.
And he's been in Supernatural, another Lonesome Dove Church, which I guess is like a movie. He's in The 100, and he was in, I guess he's the second lead in Bitten, which was the show with Supergirl from the show.
Yeah, Laura Vandervoort.
And he's in Batwoman.
Oh yeah.
He's not Mouse, is he?
No, he's the
It says his name is Tyler, but I don't remember.
Kate's love interest who got married, her husband.
Oh, holy crap! I did not recognize him because he's like such a skinny nothing in this show in Smallville, and he is like a jacked monster now. That's so funny. Like again, it's like CW likes their people and they keep them around. So he's been in like 4 CW shows.
Yeah.
So yeah, they show up and he's like, "Come on, take off your glasses," and he's like, "Look at that dude," and points at Daniel. And then Tobias says, "Yeah, he's one." And so Daniel walks away, and he's behind like Lane's drinking, and then like literally like gets taken. I don't know how else.
Yeah,
like he just gets like taken down.
The big dude grabs him, holds him so he can't escape.
Mm-hmm.
Then yeah, the van comes, and then we get Chloe almost getting run down.
Yeah,
and she jumps onto a car, which that car obviously is going to need some work.
Yeah,
another trashed car.
Yeah, so Chloe brings Clark there, and she tells him what he saw, and she also asks if he's going to go to the wedding. And he's like, he kind of like ignores her, and they ask about his whereabouts, and then the guy appears, and he's like, fine. And Chloe's like, wait, what about when you got taken? He's like, oh, I got drunk and I can't really remember anything from the night before, but I woke up in my bed. And they're just like, okay, weird.
Yeah, and he's like, and he says to Chloe, did we hook up?
Yeah. Then we cut to the Luthor mansion, and we have, obviously, the doctor before is talking to Lex. And that Tobias is getting impatient. Like, they said they were going to give him a cornea treatment so he could see. And they're like, oh, well, Lex is just delaying it so they could keep using his ability. Very obvious. And basically, this is where they drop that, like, his ability is that he can spot meteor freaks. And that they're going to use this to, quote unquote, protect them from killing each other. And Dr. Bethany's like, yeah, okay, I'm sure that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I like Lex's line that, like, just tell him that corneas don't grow on trees. And then that the Tobias character is basically just Harrison Wells's from Earth 2's his meta indicator.
Yeah.
That little smartwatch.
Which I do think it's interesting as we go on that, like, if you know Rosenbaum, like, he's a big horror guy. Yeah. And I think you get a lot of that kind of horror-esque elements in this episode, especially with Chloe later on, like with some of the shots. So Chloe tells Clark that another metahuman went missing that same night and has no recollection where he was. They think, because there's no other conclusions to draw, that it's Lex 33.1 project. And Chloe shows him the pictures of, like, the guy in the background, which is Tobias, and pointing at Daniel. And she's like, oh, we went to school with that guy, and he got blinded by the meteor shower. And they're like, oh, but he lives alone because his parents were killed in the shower, but somehow he's self-sufficient. And, that he's waiting for a cornea implant. And so during this whole thing, like, well, they go to meet him, and this is when this happens. So, like, tells him he's self-sufficient, he's waiting on a cornea implant. Then he, like, almost drops a glass. And Clark, uses his powers to catch it. And Tobias is, like, caught off guard and his glasses fall off. He, like, gasps and, like, has, like, a headache, and then asks them to leave. So, which is what kind of happened to him when he was at the bowling alley. It, like, hurt him. So we'll get to it, but this is kind of like their, what would you call it? A misdirect?
Yeah.
So Clark is like, hold on, and he super eavesdrops and says, like, and he hears Tobias calling Dr. Bethany, reporting, I found another one, in which they both assume, obviously, that he's talking about Clark. So Chloe finds Lana when she gets home, and she's like, Lana's basically like, what's going on? And she, like, doesn't want to talk. She's like, because you think Lex is involved. And she's like, I think Daniel Kim had like a meteor power, and Lana considers like, oh, like he might, Lex might be using his powers for good. And Chloe tells her that like I think that he's using Tobias to find like meteor people. So then we cut to Clark goes to Dr. Bethany to like ask him about Tobias, but he obviously refuses. And Clark distracts him, but doing super breath, and he steals the laptop. Takes it to Chloe, but she's not home, but Jimmy's there. And Chloe's not answering her phone, so Jimmy's freaked out. He's like, Jimmy, break into this because you're a photographer, so you can do that. And then he goes and runs to talk to Tobias. Clark thinks she was taken because she was a witness, but they actually reveal like Tobias is like, no, like they're collecting meteor free people. And this is where we got to like a very Sam Raimi-esque shot, which Rosenbaum is like a big fan of Raimi, like zoomed in like close-up shot of Chloe's face with like strapped to a table with like all the craziness like sticking out of her while they're scanning her and taking samples of her. It's like very alien abduction-esque.
Yeah, this I almost had to turn away because of just how
it's like weirdly graphic for this. Like I know there's something on, but like her head is clamped down, her mouth is like stretched open, and there's a whole bunch of tubes in it.
Yeah.
It's definitely like it's very horror movie-esque. It's kind of like similar to the shot in Spider-Man 2 of Doc Ock's face when they're trying to do the surgery to remove the tentacles. And it's just a shot of the face where like you can't really see much out. Like it's a cool shot. I would put money down that was like a Rosenbaum idea to do. So Chloe's still missing the next morning. Jimmy can't break into the laptop, but he's more worried about Chloe. And then Chloe just like walks up and is completely fine. And Clark's like, "You were abducted," and she's like, "I have no memory of that." And Chloe's like, "Why did they take me?" So Clark and Jimmy are like just glad she's okay.
Yeah, they say that they are. I think they said that she was taken because she was a witness. Then she says, "No, they wouldn't have let me go if I was a witness."
Yeah,
and she starts having a little
panic attack.
Yeah,
and then they're like, "Here's the doctor's laptop. So you're a reporter and you have like a high school degree. So maybe you're better at this." Which they do eventually explain why Chloe can do this stuff in like 3 more seasons from now.
Yeah.
So Lana asks Lex if he knows Tobias, and Lex like, "I don't know, I never heard of that guy." And he's like, ignoring it. And then Dr. Bellamy says his laptop was stolen later, and Lex is like, whatever. You said that you wouldn't mention me any things. And he's like, yeah, but there might be something in there about Luther Corp. And now Lex is like flipping out, saying I need to see Tobias. Lana goes to see him and is like, you're being exploited. She's like, what if I get you to get the cornea transplant? If you do that, then like they'll stop using you. And she's like, did he tell you to like check on Clark? And he's like, nah, Clark's like the most normal guy I've ever seen. And Lana's like, wait, what? Which I do like this like twist because it's kind of compared to, because they did it was the old woman in season 1, which if you listen to the movie Dumpster, that's Granny Van Dam. And then is it season 2 which is the one that feels him like super warm and glowing? Is it Brian?
Jordan.
Okay. Yeah. So like this is the first time where like one of these like sort of psychic-y kind of people like see Clark and like doesn't see that he's like a god or like perfect.
Yeah, one sees him sees a vision of him with his cape flying through space, and the other just doesn't see him dying.
Yeah. So while Chloe is working on the computer, Clark is like just eyeballing her, and this is when they kind of both say the thing out loud, like address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and it's like, probably took you because you're a meteor freak. And they don't know for sure, but like, and Clark tries to calm her down because she's like freaking out about it. Which ties all back into like what we'll get to in a couple episodes of like why she's freaking out, because she doesn't want to get put into a place, and everybody that they've kind of interacted with powers has been a bad person. So they get into the computer, and there's like a GPS overlay of Smallville, and they put green dots on people with who are infected, but then some of the dots are red, and then some of them start turning red. And this is when Jimmy shows up. It's like, yeah, that guy Daniel Kim just got into a car accident, and they're just like, oh shit, his green dot just went to red. They're clearing the table, kind of. And Chloe's like, wait a second, there's a green dot right here. And then Jimmy's like, oh crap, we need to go. So as Jimmy leaves, like Clark x-rays her, and he's like, oh, there's a thing under your collarbone. We need to take you to the hospital. Chloe's like, no, like you can't. And this is actually like, again, like a cool horror movie thing. And she's just like, you need to get this thing out of me. Like they put something in me. And she's like, I need you to use your heat vision to burn it. And he's like, no, I won't do that. And she's like, I'll use a kitchen knife and do it. I'll rip it out of me. And Clark's like, fine, hold on. And like puts his like hands down, and then, which is kind of weirdly prophetic with what happened to Allison Mack in real life. That he heat visions and burns her, and then picks out the object, and then he crushes it, and then her green dot turns to red. So Jimmy returns, and they see that they're like bandaging Chloe up, and they're like, he's like, what the hell happened? And they're like, Clark used a pocket knife and cut it out of me. And then Jimmy's like, whoa.
I love how aloof Jimmy is.
Well, because I feel like he does a good job of being like a normal person, but then like slowly kind of seeing the craziness that's like around, and like does a good job of like normalizing it with it. And then Clark speeds away. So Tobias then is like goes with Lana, and then Dr. Bethany arrives, and he's like, it's time for your surgery. And Tobias is like ready to leave, but the lights go out in the house, and they get one of the Tobias's dad's guns.
Yeah, he says, I always thought that my dad had too many guns, and turns out for once I'm actually glad he did.
Yeah, because like this is interesting. Like, so it felt like earlier on that they were setting up that Dr. Bethany wasn't that bad, but then he just goes like full heel turn and is like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you guys. And to cover up his research, and he has like a stun gun, but Tobias scares him because he's just like, he's blind and he just has like a gun. He's like, I'll just start firing. They struggle, then Lana picks up the gun, and she shoots Dr. Bethany at the same time that he hits Tobias with the stun gun. But then Clark super speeds in the way, and he stops the bullet from Lana's bullet from killing the guy, and he also like just eats the stun gun, which then bounces off of him and hits Dr. Bethany and kills him. Which I guess if you like fudged around with a stun gun, you could make it like.
He says that whoever fully charged shot will give the person will trigger a heart attack.
Yeah. I think you have to like mess with them to like get it to do that, but yeah. And then Lana and Tobias are like, what the hell just happened? And like stare at each other. And then Lana finds the bullets on the ground, or like she finds the ones that bounced off of Clark. So the cops show up.
She finds it like it's in like a cabinet sort of. Yeah.
Which again, it's like Clark could do anything, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm not gonna pick that. Like all of the time, he could just like clean up after himself and just never does. But I do actually find that to be a very Superman-esque trait of like his, and also like kind of the Flash, where like they don't necessarily have the best like foresight, like compared to like some other characters like a Batman, where they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like they're just so about like doing good and doing the right thing that they don't like cover their tracks well. So the police come, and Clark's like, Tobias is like, I'm sorry for helping Dr. Bethany. And Clark's like, yeah, I have a friend of mine who's like willing to help you with the operation, obviously implying Oliver. Tobias said he would do the same thing because she thought I was going to expose you, even though you're normal. And Clark's like, oh, and because that kind of gives like credence to what Chloe had been saying about Lana. Tobias goes in a limo. Lana approaches Clark and shows him the bullet, and he's like, I'm not meteor infected, but thank you for your concern, which he's technically not lying. And Lana's like, even if you were, it wouldn't matter to me. And they get home, like she gets home, and she's like, asks Lex like, what's going on with like, did you have anything to do with Dr. Bethany? And she's like, I swear to God, like on our unborn, he's like, I swear to God, on our unborn child, I had nothing to do with it. Wink, wink, nod, nod, because they ain't nothing there. And he knows it. And so then Clark finds Chloe, and like she's like basically continuing to have like this panic attack, which is like a very good real kind of character development with her. She's like, I can't sleep, I can't work, I'm so worried. Like, what is my thing? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, she says that she's like the whole every infected person she knows ended up dying or getting sent to Bel Rev.
Yeah.
And she says that she's a ticking time bomb waiting to go off.
Yeah. And so Lex is reviewing the video at the end and says that they should keep an eye on Chloe. Which, when they finally reveal her ability, which I think is the last episode of this season / the first episode of next season, is so hand wavy and confusing.
Yeah, it's kind of underwhelming.
And it almost makes like no sense. Like, I don't know. But otherwise, like, I think this is a really well done episode. Especially like I like the kind of different take it has and the kind of like horror-esque elements that Rosenbaum like shot in this, and I think it's like cool and fun. And I think it does a lot to build into what we get in the rest of the season. So I would definitely give this like a A-.
Same. And so, it's been a while since I've read the story, but in Hush, Superman does a similar thing to Batman.
Yes, with the heat vision thing.
Yeah.
Which don't ever watch the animated one.
Oh no,
I'm like several behind on the DC animated, and like the Apocalypse War, the last one, that one was really good. But I've missed like a couple of the other ones, and I've heard they are not good. And Hush was horrendous.
I'll say
they changed the goddamn ending. They changed the character. That's the titular character.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that after Dwayne McDuffie died, things went downhill fast.
No. Although, it's kind of awesome that we may be getting a Static movie. Produced by Michael G. Jordan, which I could not be more excited for. I love that goddamn show. And they are in the process of bringing back the Milestone universe for like the 17th time in DC Comics.
Well, I mean, Hardware and Icon each of the volume ones or the first collections are up on Comixology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're supposed to be, because everything got pushed around weird because of COVID. I believe that they are supposed to be reintroducing that line of comics, like as a separate universe again, maybe, which is also up in the air because I think they have a book coming out soon that has, because they were part of the mainstream DC universe, then they weren't, and they were their own thing. And now they're back into the DC universe because like Grifter and Batman have a book coming up. And I was like, okay, because I really want to read Grifter books because it's like 1997. He's my like least favorite of those characters. Also, like I can't remember who made those books. He's like a not good person anymore, right? Is what we learned.
Grifter?
No, the who made like those characters? I can't remember.
Oh, I want to say. I mean, Jim Lee was in charge of Wildstorm.
Maybe it was who wrote Wildstorm not too long ago. Is who I'm thinking of.
Warren Ellis.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
He no good. He bad. So now to the second episode, Promise, and this is like completely different style of episode in the storytelling. And I think it's really fun. So this episode's broken up into 3. We follow the story from Clark's perspective, then Lex's, and then Lana's, and then we have the ceremony. So the entire episode takes place over one day, starting at 7 a.m. and ending at somewhere after 5 p.m. after the wedding. And I think this is a really cool way, especially in this show, to do this kind of a thing in like a big event. And yeah, so we start off like everyone's kind of making plans the night before. Lex and Lana are viewing their ultrasound. Chloe's working on the floral arrangements and stuff. And then Clark is getting his suit ready, which is interesting. So I guess he's planning on going. And so we start the next morning. And so Clark is going through his things. He's looking for cufflinks. And he finds a picture of him and Lana from prom. And then he throws it out the window. And he goes miles and miles away. Then Clark has a dream of Lex and Lana, of saying their vows, and he comes up from behind and stabs Lex. And then Lana's horrified, and she's like, I love Lex, and then takes the knife and stabs Clark. And then, it takes the knife from Clark and stabs herself. And then that's when Clark wakes up. And I couldn't remember, is the knife from the earlier seasons, like the kryptonite knife? Or is it just a knife?
I think it's just a knife.
That would have been a fun callback, though, if it was like the knife he was supposed to stab Lex with. That was a missed opportunity. So then we go to the afternoon, and he's doing his chores, and he's pissed and throwing bales of hay. And Chloe calls him, and she's like, I'm locked in the wine cellar at the mansion. So Clark's like, all right, give me a second. And he goes there, and he rips the door off the hinges, which is a bit extreme. But then he welds it back on with his heat vision. Again, like, this is like his kind of flippant attitude I was talking about in the last episode, where he just immediately does this, though. And he turns to leave, and Chloe's like, why haven't you done anything to go to Lana or do anything? It's like, he's like, oh, there's nothing I can do. And Chloe's like, dude, like, you save Lana all the time. Like, she obviously needs saving now. Why don't you save her? And he's just like, basically, I'm afraid of being rejected if I tell her the truth, like, and like all this stuff. And like, he's just like, I can't deal with it. And then he like runs away. So Clark is contemplating like the message from his mom that is on the back of his dad's watch that he wears. Martha shows up, and she's like, he asks her like how she knew his dad was the one. And she says, nothing's that simple. It's like, we came from different backgrounds. We almost didn't get married. I risked everything to be with him, but I received everything I ever wanted in love. Because Martha's from Metropolis, and she's rich, I believe, right? Is the background in this?